Welcome back to another Hell Let Loose video. Team 17 have released a dev brief breaking down all the biggest changes coming to Hell Let Loose with update 17.1, and we also got hands-on with a PTE over the weekend. From major medic upgrades to the bipod rework to new dynamic weather systems, there is a ton to cover here. Of course, there is a link to the dev brief in the description and pinned in the comments if you want to check it out. Also, one big note before we dive in. Everything I tested was in the PTE, meaning none of this is final and some features were not finished or even present. So all of this can change before final release. That said, let's get into what we are getting with update 17.1. First up, medics are getting a pretty big buff. Revives will now bring players back with full health, making it easier to stay in the fight. Medic bandaging is faster too, down to just 2 seconds, even when self-bandaging. And this is very noticeable how much faster this is. Revive speed for all factions is now 2 seconds flat, meaning you will have your teammates back up and ready to fight almost instantly. And XP rewards for both reviving and being revived by a medic have more than doubled from 30 to 75 XP, giving players a little more incentive to wait for that medic. And on top of this, there's a new call and response system. When you're down, you can now request a revive and medics can respond via the ping system to let you know that they're on the way. And while the request a revive feature for down players did not work in this PTE, I did test the medic response portion of it, and you can use the radio wheel to let a down teammate know that you're on the way, or if you can't make it, and it will show on their screen. This will be helpful for down players that actually want to be revived so that they don't have to waste any time being unsure if a medic is actually going to come revive them. And if you want my opinion on all this, I've mentioned in other videos, yes, while these upgrades absolutely make the medic role a much better class, I still don't feel like this role is necessary for success in Hell Let Loose. Since there is no ticket system and you have OPs, garrisons, and half tracks to spawn into, there's usually no downside to just respawning, especially if you need to refill your ammo. But regardless of how I feel, the medic role definitely needed some love, so I'm glad to see it getting these upgrades. Next up we have bipods, and bipods have finally been reworked. No more frustrating clipping or missed deploys. The game now detects real surfaces instead of using outdated hard-coded values, with pitch angles being improved as well. You can now aim higher or lower based on your surface height. And standing or crouching now share deployment limits, so you won't have to switch stances to deploy properly anymore. And I have to admit, I don't often play the MG role in this game, so I'm probably not the most knowledgeable on how bad the bipod system currently is in this game. I do know that it's really limiting on what you can deploy on and how much you can move around once deployed. When we tested this rework in the PT, we noticed that it was a bit smoother and didn't really notice any issues when trying to deploy on multiple different objects. That said, we did just test this on Mortain. We didn't test this on every map, running around on every single object, but the amount you could swing around on some objects was pretty awesome. However, the best part about this rework was the ability to crouch and stand without having to redeploy. So if you wanted to crouch down for cover, you can absolutely do that. The only downside is that we couldn't reload while crouching. It would always make our character stand up. Another weird thing was the range was very limited while in prone, with how far you can turn. I was hoping that we would be able to go 360 degrees in prone, but that was not the case even if there were no objects in the way. So hopefully this is getting more love and this will be a little bit better. Again, I'm not playing MG that often in Hell Let Loose, but what I tried, this does seem to be an improvement and on the right track. Next up, we have new tank and vehicle camos. Team 17 states, following the overwhelmingly positive reception of Elsenborn, we will be getting winter tank camos and vehicle camos on Foy and Kharkov. I am honestly surprised this took so long, and yes, they do look pretty freaking awesome. I think this will bring a new dynamic to tank battles on Foy, and the Soviet tanks on Kharkov look really, really cool, especially the T-34 being all white. That thing is going to be really hard to spot in the snow. Next up, let's talk performance, specifically the LOD system. We're getting some updates here, starting with the barbed wire assets. The overly sharp LOD transitions are being smoothed out with fewer triangles and better performance over distance. They're also addressing H-LOD issues, especially for scoped views like binoculars or tank optics. Barbed wires have been removed from H-LODs to make it look better from a distance, so yeah, no more weird low poly mess when zooming in. After that, we got Postmatch VoIP being introduced. Voice chat will now stick around after the match ends, so you can plan for your next round or just talk shit, who knows, in squad or leadership channels. But I really welcome this. There is now a mute all button that has been added down at the bottom of the screen for those who want a little peace and quiet during stat screens. So if you want to ignore somebody or everybody, you can do that. Next up, we have the flare gun and how it illuminates the environment. Flares are finally getting some love. The devs are working on proving how light spreads to better illuminate the battlefield during matches. This is still in progress and they want feedback. And honestly, when flares were first announced, I thought that was supposed to be the purpose of them and not be some spammable radar. So this is something small but appreciated for me. When testing, I found that these things really light up the map, not only on night maps, but also during the day. The red flare for the Axis is really immersive, especially in wooded areas. It looked really cool. The yellow flare from the Allies did look a little funny on snow maps, just looking like someone took a big piss everywhere. So yeah, while I was excited to see this on there, after testing it, I'm not really sure on it anymore. I worry with how often these things are spammed that the red and yellow would just be a little too much. It was hard to tell in the PTE as it's not an actual match and it's just a few of us messing around. But when you're in a real match and flares are just being fired and fired and fired over again, I'm not sure how many players want to be in just a yellow and red environment permanently. Next up, we're getting some admin cam colors. This is mainly for the content creators or admins that just want to mess around, but there are new filters for the admin cam called color lookup tables. Think bloom, film grain, vignetting, etc. Tons of tools to make your cinematic shots way more dramatic. If this was in the PTE, I could not figure it out. But from the images and videos in the dev brief, it looks pretty cool, and you can probably use this to make some fun clips. Next up, the dev brief mentions that the practice range just got a little more useful. You can now try every single loadout regardless of your rank, whether you're testing weapons or prepping for a match, it's all available in that safe environment. And continuing with the idea of learning hella loose, there is now going to be an explore mode. And in this mode, you can freely roam any map, even an admin cam. No XP, no objectives, just pure sandbox exploration, learn the maps, plan your tactics, ambushes, whatever. It's really simple to access. You just go to the enlist, explore, and then choose whichever map you want to do. I think this is great for the average player that may not have access to an empty server or admin cam, giving the players the ability to instantly jump into any map without having Archon controls is pretty sweet. A lot of getting good at this game is simply map knowledge, and being able to just see maps at your own pace is a great option to have. However, there are some limitations. You cannot choose the commander role, and night variants didn't appear. But with that said, this is a great start to something awesome. Next up, let's talk dynamic weather. This has been something that Team 17 has been really passionate about in every single new map, every update that's come recently. And we're going to see dynamic weather make its way onto some legacy maps, each tuned per map for maximum immersion. Foy and Kharkov's will be getting dynamic blizzards like Elsenborn, and Mortain will be getting rain like Purple Heart Lane. Team 17 does say that the system's flexible enough to give each map a distinct feel. And I did check these maps out in the PTE. I noticed that Foy was absolutely the most extreme. When that blizzard rolls in, it is intense. Visibility is greatly reduced and will absolutely have the ability to really change the flow of a game. However, it was a different story on Kharkov. When the dynamic weather had the blizzard hit, it was much more mild than Foy. While long-range visibility was reduced, there really wasn't an effect on anything else. Anything that was close or just a little bit further away did not seem like it had any reduction in visibility. And lastly, we have the rain on Mortain, and this was not great in my opinion. When it hit, it felt like it went on forever. It's overly loud and kind of just too much. Also, it was clipping through buildings, but I'm sure that part will be cleaned up before final release. However, I feel this didn't bring anything to the actual game more than just a constant sound in my ear. But here's the best news, and it is in the fine print in the dev brief, with Team 17 stating, please note that the server owners will have the option to disable dynamic weather with the launch of version 17.1. However, this feature is not available in the PTE. What this means is that if you don't want to use dynamic weather, we don't have to. And I am, for one, really curious to see how Tobruk will play without a sandstorm rolling in. I'm curious to see how Elsenborn will play without a blizzard rolling in. But at the same time, I think that's a fun option to have if you do want to occasionally include these maps with the dynamic weather in your rotation. And continuing on with the weather theme, we have night maps and fog up next, with Team 17 stating community feedback highlighted concerns over excessive fog and difficulty with sightlines on some of the newer night maps. It was found that Elsenborn Ridge had an acceptable level of fog and lighting exposure, which the team are using as the basis for improvements. Based on evaluation and feedback, El Alamein, Omaha Beach, and Hill 400 were found to have acceptable intensities of fog, with El Alamein's fog intensity being welcomed in addressing overly long sightlines. Kharkov, SMDM, Driel, Carentan, SME, Utah Beach, and Stalingrad were all found to be excessively foggy. So they will be going in and reducing the fog on those maps I just listed. They have some screenshots here in the dev brief, and I am all for this. I dislike night maps not because they're dark, but because of the fog. It just isn't fun for me. And after seeing how much Kharkov Night had changed in the PTE with fog reduction, I'm even more excited to revisit some of these night maps when they get the similar treatment. And next up we have DirectX12 Support, with Team 17 stating Hell Let Loose on PC platforms will now use DirectX12 as its rendering API, offering performance gains during gameplay. Due to the variety of PC setups, we understand that issues may arise with this change. Therefore, an option to switch back to DirectX 11 will be available in the video settings section of the settings menu. I see no issues with this. I know people love running DirectX 12, so I'm glad to see it get a little support there. The next section is Tru Improvements. Tru is getting some visual upgrades. VFX around large buildings now occlude properly, I don't know if I'm saying that word correctly, and textures have been enhanced to show more shrapnel and bullet damage. Interiors are now dirtier and more war-torn, and new ground scatter has been added, and this is all without hurting performance. It's all about bettering the atmosphere and immersion. And I do think that this map still felt a little too clean when it was released, so I'm glad to see another pass on it to really make it feel lived in and fought over. Only good things here. Next up, we have a section on some Archon tools. With Archon also getting some upgrades, server admins will now be able to adjust match timers per game mode, giving more flexibility for community servers or events. So this is honestly the biggest part of this dev brief for me and what I'm most excited for with update 17.1. I've always felt the future of this game should be based around admin controls and what they can do in their own private servers. Having the flexibility to change how long matches are is probably bigger than most players think. Now we will be able to run shorter matches at night to try and keep servers alive. You can increase match timers for events or if you're trying to seed, and so on and so on. Having more freedom to mold this game is always a good thing for the player. So that's everything coming in Hell Let Loose update 17.1 that is listed in this dev brief. Tons of improvements across gameplay, visuals, performance, and quality of life. Not only is this probably one of the best dev briefs we've gotten in a long time, this is a pretty meaty update. So if you're excited for any of these changes, have any concerns, thoughts, opinions, let me know down in the comments. I like reading them, others like reading them. I know Team 17 reads them, so please fire away. Also, next weekend, the weekend of June 6th, there will be another PTE featuring the new objective mode. So if you're on Steam, go check it out. Go try out the new mode. Let the devs know what you think. But that's all from me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for everything you do. See you dudes on the front line.